What disgusting secret did you find out about someone? You/Curious 123 responded. My dirtbag uncle convinced my grandmother to hand over her power of attorney to him and then proceeded to sell her house and put her into a senior living home when she was only in her 50s. He left her there to rot and then threw out most of her belongings and absconded with all of the family heirlooms from my great-grandfather, who was a famous artisan. In the intervening years, he pawned off most of the heirlooms as he continued to scam his way across the country. Last I heard, he had somehow swindled his way into being a judge in Montana. He tried calling my dad a year or so ago and lying about what he had done to my grandmother. My dad called him out on that shit, and the dirtbag hasn't tried contacting any of us since. Now that my sister and I are grown, living on comfortable wages, we have been slowly buying my great-grandfather's works as we see them appear up for auction or on eBay to bring them back into the family. A couple years ago we found one of my great-grandfather's pieces that my dad had thought to be lost forever and surprised him with it for Christmas. I don't think LVE ever seen him more overjoyed than he was that day. You/Infamusos responded. There were rumors when I was a child that a friend of mine was being molested by her stepdad. Adults were told, but nothing came of it, and she went through emancipation as soon as she was old enough. I learned later on that stepdad was having his way with all of the children in the house. Male and female, step and biological. 5 kids. The thing that disgusts me the most is that for the first time in my life I talked to somebody about it and learned that a lot of people in town knew it was going on. She and I were 11 years old. Not a damn thing either of us could do. But the adults should have fucking helped those kids. Teachers knew. The principal of our school knew. I don't have all the details as to why they weren't removed from the home, but there's no reason or excuse for all of them to stay in that place with that man for years. You/fat_getting_fit_420 responded. This local kid was kinda slow. My best friend, from 7th grade to adulthood, hung out with him when we were in elementary school. People used to tell him to do wild shit and he would do it. He and his sister lived in a foster home, and one day, they disappeared around 6th grade. My best friend later told me his sister wore a diaper until she was 11, and the brother almost died from huffing paint at 10. Some kids even got them to do sexual stuff to each other as a dare. My friend wasn't there, but that's when he stopped hanging around them. Fast forward 5 to 10 years, his sister is on MTV True Life about runaway prostitutes. 10 years after that, my best friend runs into him, and he says they were removed from the home for being molested by his foster family. His sister has been missing for 7+ years, and is living with the foster mother who molested him. Sad story. You/salty_fixer responded. The kid that lived in the house next door to me grew up to be a child molester. He was my age when he lived next door, around 6 or 7, and used to come over and hang out in my backyard. At some point he became intensely interested in seeing my, pecker. He would ask repeatedly what mine looked like and ask to see it. He was all for, you show me yours and I'll show you mine. Even at 6, I thought this was weird and refused to compare peckers with him. He and his family moved away a few years later. I never saw him again. Decades later, out of morbid curiosity, I googled his name and found his arrest and conviction record in another state. He had been a respected member of his professional community, in a profession involving children. He and a buddy would pay young teenage boys to perform with them on video in hotel rooms. They were busted, and my childhood pal spent some time in prison. Eesh. You/Semitron responded. When I was around 8 or 9, I went over to my friend's house to play Nintendo, and his older brother was there with one of his friends LD never met before. I think they were 15-16ish. Just thought I was hanging out with some cool older kids. When I got home, my mom asked where I was and who I was with. I told her, and when I mentioned the name of the older brother's friend, he had a unique name, my mom became very alarmed. She knew him. When he was 12 or 13, he raped one of her friend's son when he was 5. She was also friends with the nurse who treated the boy after the assault. Needless to say, she made me swear I would stay away from the new older kid. Word got around the neighborhood. I lived in a subsidized housing community where you had to have kids to qualify to live there, so everyone there was a parent and understandably freaked out about a known predator hanging around. My memory is hazy on the details, but to my understanding he was given a clear message to not come around anymore. I never saw him again. I went to high school with the kid that was assaulted. We had a few mutual friends. I tried to be friendly, but I could tell he was uncomfortable that I knew what had happened to him. I understood how he felt, kept my distance and never told a soul. I hope he's doing well. You/Heart Squirrels responded. I grew up in a very religious family, church 3x a week, and went to Catholic school. The priest who built our parish was beloved by all, but just gave me ick vibes. In the early 2000s, someone from his previous parish, 30 years before, claimed he was inappropriate with them. Of course no one believed it and assumed she was saying that for money. A couple of years ago, a friend from school posted on Facebook that she was looking for other girls from school he abused, because she couldn't believe she was the only one. I was close to her growing up and had no idea. She didn't ask for a penny from the church, and still is a dedicated member of the church. The priest has since passed. 100% believe her, as her accusation only hurt her within the community, but helped her heal from the trauma. You/Whiskadabba67 responded. There was a guy who was friends with people in my friend group. He was actually the older stepbrother of a guy in our friend group. Not sure why, but I never liked him. One time at a party at a friend's place who had off-road trails on his property, many of us had purchased beta jeeps and trucks to leave there and hit the trails with. He got drunk and was mad a bunch of us had trucks to hit those trails with. Probably because everyone partying there ended up getting into our beaters and cruising the trails, including all the girls there who were like 8 years younger than him. He decided to take his Crown Victoria, his only vehicle, out on the trails when we got back. Everyone told him not to. He tried getting girls to ride with him. Everyone said no. We actually tried to take his keys and he flipped out. Proceeded to get in, gun it down a trail and roll his car. That he needed to go to work. Woke up in the morning freaking out at everyone. Just the kind of stupid short-sighted shit he did, trying to impress girls almost a decade younger than him. I never liked the guy. Well, it turns out he was a serial rapist target a local campus, with like a half-dozen victims that came forward at least. Waited in parking lots, broke into houses through windows, sprayed them with mace. Just all sorts of fucked up shit. Now everyone just acts like he never existed. You/Jagmeet Singh 2 responded. Ex-best friend admitted she was cheating on her BF of 6 years with some random guy she thought was way better looking and better in bed, her words. I told her I wasn't going to keep her secret and she needed to stop fooling around with her BF and tell him the truth. This led to a bunch of drama, her BF finding out, them breaking up and her dating the guy she was cheating with for a year. Up until she breaks up with him, cause of course he cheated on her, and goes back to her BF. Yep, the one she cheated on took her back, and from what I hear from friends who still talk to them, they made me the villain in this story cause I threatened to rat her out, and apparently that was emotionally manipulative. Ridiculous. You/Grim Golem responded. In high school I was friends with a guy who would talk about his twin sister a lot. One day he confessed to me that him and his twin sister lost their virginities with each other and would regularly have sex. I went to my older sister to ask what to do because I was freaked out. She told me to mind my business. Well, fortunately he had loose lips and someone else did report him. Him and his sister were removed from one another. I met his dad once when I was the driver for the group of us teens, only one who had a car. I was 17 at that point. His dad kept trying to give me beer and shots while I kept declining. His uncle was kissing a 16-year-old girl we had with us. She was drunk. I forced her to leave with me and took her home along with the boys. They were being creeps too, so I put her in the front seat next to me where I could monitor her. I was so uncomfortable, man. We both went into the military so we could go to college, different branches. He got kicked out and diagnosed with schizophrenia. His dad died of kidney failure from alcoholism. Yay for being born to low socioeconomic status. You/Fuckmylifau responded. Back in college, I had a roommate who seemed pretty normal at first, quiet, kept to himself, and always had his headphones in. But after living with him for a few months, I started noticing some weird shit. First, there was a strange smell that would occasionally come from his side of the room, but I just figured it was old food or something. I didn't think much of it. Until one day, I came back early from class and caught him red-handed. This dude was in the middle of peeing in a fucking plastic bottle. I'm not talking about being in a rush or doing it one time as an emergency. No, he had dozens of these bottles full lined up under his bed like it was some twisted collection. Some of them were even capped and dated, like he was keeping track of his piss like it was fine wine or something. I was disgusted. I asked him why the hell he didn't just use the bathroom that was literally 10 feet away from our room, and he said, I shit you not, that he was too lazy to walk to the bathroom sometimes. Too lazy. So instead of getting up and taking 10 steps to the bathroom, he preferred to piss in bottles and store them under his bed like some kind of demented hoarder. The worst part? He didn't even seem ashamed. He acted like it was completely normal, like I was the weird one for being grossed out. Needless to say, I moved the fuck out not long after. I couldn't look at him, or those goddamn bottles, the same way again. You/Rashad21 responded. The girl I had a crush on for ages became newly single. We hit it off after years and she agreed to have dinner with me. We went to Chili's, and while she was absolutely demolishing the southern egg rolls, when she casually, and I mean very casually, told me that she left her ex because her son, 5, was no longer entertaining her. When I asked for her to explain, she admitted to raping her boyfriend's 5-year-old son and filming it for years. The date ended abruptly. I pretended to get an important text from my mom telling me to help her out with something and left. I called a friend to ask how to even approach this. I went to the police and they told me to bugger off. If I don't have proof of some kind that was legally obtained, then there's nothing they can do. When I did try to record her saying it, audio, she refused to share any details on her hobby because she thought I left and I was shaming her. She never clearly admitted what she had told me the previous day, so I have no way of getting this looked at further by any sort of official. You/Anthuhuhi responded. There was a coach on one of my high school teams who I had a big crush on. He was really nice to me and complimented my playing and lots of stuff. I ended up having to leave the team after a few months because Elle switched schools, and I didn't think much about him after that, although sometimes I kind of laughed at myself for having such a big crush on him, but also thought about how nice and cute he had been or whatever. Just a few months ago, which would be about 5 years after I was on the team, I reconnected with one of the girls I was on the team with and found out he had been arrested and convicted of sexually harassing and grooming many of the girls on the team, even assaulting one of them. I was horrified, and, thinking back on it, realized that I had been being groomed. I was so lucky to have left the team when I did, or I would have been another one of his victims. You/Deckjammer responded. Not so disgusting really, judge for yourself. When I was a teenager, my father told me, just once, about how he was complicit in the euthanasia of his own father. His dad was living, dying, in their poor, working-class home in London, suffering from incurable cancer back in the 1960s. Screaming down the house in pain all through the night. His doctor used to come round every evening to give him a shot of morphine, and my dad was in the habit of helping him by holding down his father's arm etc., and was roughly familiar with the dosage etc. He said that one night when his dad was really bad, he was helping out the DR and noticed that he pulled up a far larger dose than normal. His words to me went very close to then our eyes met over his body, and in that silent moment a question was asked and an answer was given, all without words. The doctor inserted the needle and pushed the plunger, and my grandfather died soon afterwards of a massive morphine overdose. My dad wasn't a liar and was a very, very decent man. You/Prince Costanza Capone responded. Worked as a team manager in a corporate call center. Being a manager, you are not supposed to fraternize or befriend workers beneath you. To just avoid any issues, most managers really only went on breaks with other managers, spoke to other managers, etc. I was introduced to one of them by another who I had known for a while. Right off the bat, first impression, the guy kinda gave me the creeps. He was kinda greasy, had gross teeth from years of doing chew, and just kinda gave me a really gross vibe. I mentioned it later when he wasn't around to the guy who had introduced me to him and kinda just asked how well he knew him, and if he had ever gotten a similar feeling. I was assured nah, he's a good dude, big college football fan. I convinced myself that I was just being judgmental. Worked with the guy for about a year until he was moved to a different contract. I didn't make any attempt to befriend him, nor did I make attempts to avoid him, but always kept any contact short and work-related. He was just another guy that worked at the same company. However, I always felt there was just something off about him. Cut to about 5 years later. That company had closed down. I turn on my TV and the local news is on. It's his face and he's clearly in an orange jumpsuit. He was charged with operating a child pornography ring, specifically producing and distributing. I was shocked but also kind of not shocked. I guess it was a lesson to trust my instincts, and I will never forget it. If someone instantly gives you the creeps, trust that feeling. You/Frozen Vikings responded. My childhood best friend died in the woods, far away where we used to do week-long wilderness canoe trips. At first I was told, by his family, that he had a bad day at work and went off to see what it looked like there in the dead of winter to clear his head. They said he fell through the ice, got out, and then froze to death under a tree in deep snow. Believable, sad, tragic, and it killed me inside. A year later they confessed the truth, that he was molesting his and his brother's daughters and was caught. So he ran away and hung himself from that tree. For a year I still thought the world of him and missed him, that he had just fucked up and froze in the wilderness. Nothing to be ashamed of, purely accidental and very sad. So I missed him terribly and relived all our incredible fun adventures together in my head to make me feel better about his loss. But when I found out the truth, it gutted me, destroyed my soul. It sent me into a deep depression, and I could only help myself by turning that around and being grateful that he killed himself. It's horrible what he left behind, and I realize he obviously wasn't well and needed help, but he's still a piece of shit and deserves what he did to himself. Don't forget password to responded. Someone I had known for years. Very successful, well-off, young guy who could have easily dated any woman he wanted. Kidnapped a woman, held her captive for days, raped and tortured her. He is currently out. After he did what he did, he then proceeded with his week as if it never happened. Took us out to drinks, went hiking, very creepy looking back now being a woman alone with him in the woods. He wasn't caught until later, in the time after what he did. He even came on our girls' trip to Vegas to keep us safe. He was violent if men wouldn't leave us alone. He always played protector. He was always very nice, sweet and charming. When he was being convicted and it all came to light, it was very shocking. Police came and talked to us all. He was also currently stalking another woman as his next victim, and they were trying to find out if we knew her. He was also investigated for multiple disappearances and murders, but nothing could be tied to him. He's out now and tries to text us happy birthday and Merry Christmas as if it never happened. Mysterious Rain 4197 responded. My friend that's 35, his dad is the biggest liar and takes it upon himself to spy on him through hidden cameras, listening devices that he's put around his home as he trusted him with a set for emergencies. He's changed his accounts and has access to everything in his phone, including texts, emails, passwords, photos, everything. Talks about transparency and being forthcoming. He's a hypocrite and he wants nothing to do with him. He's also been caught but acts like he's just this innocent bystander and that he doesn't even know how to do any of that. He's also watches 8 hours of YouTube a day and for DIY stuff. I feel bad because my friend is looked at by everyone like he's crazy and he is going through a really rough time already, then to have family do something as insidious as this. He's mentioned wanting to just be done with life, and I am trying to do anything I can to make him see that he doesn't need these people in his life. He can choose his family that would never do this to him. I feel for him. Thanks for watching, everyone. Like and subscribe for more videos like this one. If you enjoyed this video and want to dive even deeper into our community, consider becoming a channel member. Members get exclusive perks like early access to videos, custom emojis, shoutouts, etc. And it's a great way to support the channel so I can keep bringing you the content you love.